I know there's a light switch somewhere down here. Illuminating Ideas. Artists of all ages run into the same basic problem. What is it that we should be making artwork of? We all have a natural tendency to make artwork, and we hit a point where we want to create the artwork. We want to have creativity, but sometimes that's hard when you think about all of the pressures in life. Things like food and shelter and sleep. Things like our schools and our societies and time logs and money. All the things that you want to learn that you haven't learned yet. All the relationships and partnerships and friendships that you have in life. Our brain is preoccupied with keeping our body in shape. And then, of course, we have all those things that distract us. All of our entertainment. Not to mention, we have a couple of just random thoughts and questions thrown into our brain for good measure. The problem isn't when you're having one or two of those things going on in your brain at the same time. The problem is when you have all of them going in your brain at the same time.
All those thoughts and responsibilities and happenings in your life sure don't make it easy to concentrate and do artwork.
When this happens, it can cause what we call burnout. And if you've ever experienced burnout, you know that afterwards, your brain isn't able to hold much of a thought anymore. At least not for a while.
I like turtles.
You can tell when you're close to burnout because you hit a certain point where your brain is just rushing. It's thinking of 10,000 things all at the same time. It's like you have a hamster wheel just spinning in your brain and it won't slow down. You may want to make artwork, but right now you have a bad case of artist's block. The problem is this. We know that we want to create something. And we think that in order for us to create something, we need to have creativity. And in order for us to have creativity, we need to feel creative. That, my friends, is a rabbit hole of problems. And it can lead to even more artist block than you had before. Feeling creative isn't the important part. And creativity isn't even the important part. Think of it this way. You don't wake up first thing in the morning and think, oh, I'm ready for that hike, or I want to go practice sport, or I want to read through this book, or I want to go work out. You definitely aren't thinking about the homework on top of homework on top of homework on top of homework that you have to do. No, your mind is more preoccupied most of the time on phones, televisions, and video games. Things that are, well, fun. But are they fun? I mean, are they always fun? I myself play a lot of video games, and I can't tell you how many times I've been sitting there pounding on the A button and the right trigger, frantically trying to get some crazy achievement, and it gets to a point where I'm actually pretty darn frustrated.
No!
Or I've been sitting in front of the TV doing some monotonous task like fishing in a video game for hours just to unlock some new achievement. So no, sometimes the things that we call fun aren't always fun. So why do we do them? Because they're rewarding. Why do we do those jobs that maybe we don't want to do? Well, maybe we're getting paid. Why is it that sometimes we do well in a class that maybe we don't care about as much? Because we're getting a diploma. These are rewards. And rewards act as an incentive to do things that might have been fun, started to feel like work, but those incentives, those rewards keep you going. Perhaps the biggest reward is the feeling that you have when you feel that you've accomplished something. Especially if it's something important or meaningful. When we were itty-bitties, we did all kinds of crazy things for fun, and the arts very much were fun as a child. But as you got older, this part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, it dictates logic and reason, and it developed. And when it developed, it put up this alarm system. It made it so that you were more critical of what you were doing. You were comparing what you were doing to what other people were doing. You were comparing what you were doing to something that wasn't even the same. Maybe you were trying to draw from a photograph, and no matter how hard you tried, that drawing just didn't look like a photograph. Well, it wasn't meant to. It's meant to be a drawing, not a photograph. That stress that our prefrontal cortex creates, that makes things like the arts feel more like work than fun. But something feeling like work isn't a bad thing. In fact, when we work at something, it helps us to grow. When we put time into something, it helps us to mature, and it helps to keep things more interesting. As an artist, one of my favorite phrases is creativity is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. You may have the greatest idea in the world, but if you're not willing to put in the work and the time to grow that creativity, it's meaningless. But taking that first step, it's hard because what's in front of you is that apathy. It's that feeling that you've got that roadblock. And the real question is, how do you get past that roadblock? How do you get past artist block? Well, my artists, whether your brain has a hamster running frantically, is completely empty right now, whether your prefrontal cortex is telling you that you just can't, or whether you're just experiencing burnout, trying these 8 methods to get yourself back into making and enjoying art really can help. Doodling with intent. What this means is you're going to just start doodling. Just start drawing. Don't worry about that end result. And as you're working, try to see what shapes you are starting to form. Try to see pictures within those doodles. And when you see them, start going with it. Maybe it starts looking like a duck, so start making it look more like a duck. And maybe as you're doing that, it looks more like a chicken. Well, go with it. You're letting the artwork guide you instead of your brain guiding the artwork. Drawing in the dark is a great way to kind of loosen up your brain a little bit and not care as much about the end product. Go into a dark room with your pencil and your paper and just start drawing. You can't see what you're drawing. Sometimes random marks on your paper, when you turn the lights back on, can be a source of inspiration. It can be a source of seeing something that you can do that you hadn't thought of before. Fall back on what you know. If you're really feeling burnt out with making art, then fall back on something that you're really comfortable and you really feel that you're good at doing. Even if all that is just tracing or coloring, doing something creative, doing something with your hands and your eyes, doing something back in the arts, even if it's something as simple as coloring in a stock image from the internet, will help to loosen up artist block. Draw what is there. In other words, just sit and draw. If you're watching TV, that's okay. Just sit and draw the TV. Just sit and draw the wall next to you. Just sit and draw your foot. Just sit and draw the couch. Don't worry about how it turns out. Just draw whatever it is that's nearby you. Just keep drawing. That's the important part. It's that keep working element of art making that you really want to enforce. Repeat, repeat, repeat. This one's an easy one to understand. Basically, you find one thing and you just keep drawing it again and again and again and again. And every time you draw it, you try changing it up a little bit. Maybe you draw it in a different style or with different shapes, or this time you use color and this time you use marker and this time you use toothpaste. I don't know, but keep on making the same kind of image or the same theme again and again and again. Sometimes that can give us a little bit of confidence with our prefrontal cortex and get us past artist block. Sometimes it's just the idea of getting into a routine and just repeating that routine until we get bored of it, in which case we move on to something new and we can repeat that then. Friendly prompts is one of my personal favorites. Basically, you need another person to do this or several people. And what you do is you write down prompts and you give them to each other. Those prompts are telling the other person what it is that they should be drawing. This is great for doing cartoons, and guess what? Cartoons are okay. There's no problem with doing cartoons. Cartoons very much can help loosen up our brain. They can loosen up that artist block. Just having fun with the artwork and not worrying about the end product always helps loosen up our more completed artwork. Animal, place, and action. This one's pretty simple, but a lot of people overthink it. Basically, you're going to name an animal, and yes, that animal can be a person. Then you're going to name where that animal is. And then you're saying, what is the animal doing? So maybe I have a 2-headed bullfrog, and it's living in Egypt. And the action is it's playing a ukulele. There you go. I'm going to make my artwork of that 2-headed bullfrog. The background's going to be Egypt. And the action is, well, I need to look up a stock image of a ukulele because I have no idea how to draw that. But it gives me a challenge, and it, again, could be something fun and easy to do. This is perhaps my personal favorite simply because it is a little bit more structured, but at the same time gives us limitless freedom. Our last one is perhaps the hardest one to do, but I believe it is the single most helpful thing that you can do to get past artist block, and that is to seek out what you fear. In other words, if you hate drawing hands, start drawing hands. If you hate drawing feet, start drawing feet. If you hate drawing the texture of a sponge, draw the texture of a sponge. Whatever it is that you've been avoiding in your artwork, that's what you should be focusing on. And sometimes in the process of doing that work, eventually it starts to become fun. And eventually you might even hit a point where you purposely seek out those things that you fear drawing because you want that challenge, because you found that sense of accomplishment, that sense of achievement in doing so. The key to all of these methods is to not worry about the end result. Just worry about the process. Just enjoy doing the artwork for the sake of doing artwork. The more you make, the more time you invest. The more time that you invest, the more confident you become. And the more confident you become, the easier it is to make new art and try new things. The more art you make, the more connections you make. And the more connections you make, the more creative you become. Creativity is the same as doing.
So get out there and make some artwork. Just have fun with it.
To get past artist block, the key is always going to be to simply do the art.
A person empowered with the ability to create, the ability to do, is a force to be reckoned with, even for artist block.
Every journey begins with a first step. It's time to make some art. Get to doing. I'm Mr. Morris. I can't wait to see what you make next.